Well, here we are again. We're still in the middle of, or maybe even the beginning of, this time spent apart because of the worry, because of the concern, because of the real threat of the spread of this virus. A couple of things to think about as we continue this, and one is that we really don't know for sure how long this is going to go on. Estimates range from a few weeks to maybe months, and we really don't know, and so we're a little bit uncertain about that. But one of the things that I think may come from this is that this may make us a little bit more thankful for some of the things that frankly we've probably taken for granted. One of the most obvious is just gathering. Right now I'm putting this video together, and it's Wednesday, and normally we'd be getting ready and be ready to start welcoming in people, because Wednesday night Bible study, and we have the kids running up and down the halls, and we have the fellowship and just the joy of getting to talk with one another and connect in those ways, and that's been taken from us for a little while. So while we are apart, there are some things that I hope that we think about and hope that we do, and I'm certain that we are already doing this, but this is just an encouragement to go on. One of the things that I've been looking at just in the last few days has been Paul's letters, and really one particular aspect of Paul's letters. Paul's letters make up the bulk of our New Testament, number of books wise. Paul seems to be a pretty prolific writer. But there's a lot of things that his letters have in common, and it's kind of a form that the letter writing of that time took, but this is one of those things that we're going to notice today. With the exception of one, there's a section in almost every letter of Paul that talks about his being thankful for the congregation, for that particular church. And as you look at each of these individual ones, whether it's from Romans or from 1 Corinthians or from Ephesians or from Colossians, and we move on down the line, there's a section in there where he talks about how thankful he is, and there's some things that are in common in all of those. One is that he hears of their faith. I hear of your faith. And not only do I hear of your faith, it's not because that's something that they just privately hold. It's because their faith is making a difference in their lives and in the lives of people around them. That's one. He's thankful for their love, for the love that they have for one another, for the love that they have for the saints and for others outside, and the way that they're impacting the people around them. And then he might pray for some specifics for that congregation, kind of what he hopes that they have, what he hopes that they do. It might be that he prays that they grow in their knowledge of Jesus, and not just head knowledge, but in their knowledge and their experience of the width and the depth and the height, right, of the love of God in Christ Jesus from Ephesians. That he prays that their faith continue, that they continue to grow, that they continue to remain faithful, that they stay the course. These kinds of things. It keeps going over and over. I want to look at one particular one for our little short time together today, and then I have a little something that I want to encourage us to do along with this. It's from Philippians. Philippians chapter 1, and the great letter that Paul writes to the church in Philippi, which is a fantastic letter in itself, but just in his opening greeting. In Philippians chapter 1, it starts in verse 3. I thank my God in all my remembrance of you, always in every prayer of mine for you all, making my prayer with joy, because of your partnership in the gospel from the first day until now. And I'm sure of this, that he who began a good work in you will bring it to completion at the day of Jesus Christ. It is right for me to feel this way about you all, because I hold you in my heart, for you are all partakers with me of grace, both in my imprisonment and in the defense and confirmation of the gospel. For God is my witness, how I yearn for you with all the affection of Christ Jesus. And it is my prayer that your love may abound more and more with knowledge and all discernment, so that you may approve what is excellent, and so be pure and blameless for the day of Christ, filled with the fruit of righteousness that comes through Jesus Christ, to the glory and praise of God. There's a couple of things that I want us to look at as Paul writes this letter, into some of the thoughts that seem to be laying behind this. One of the things that seems to be evident throughout this prayer is that Paul is away from, absent from, the people he loves. Now, I realize Paul is in a Roman prison. We believe that the letter to the church in Philippi, along with several of his others, are written during this 2-year imprisonment that Luke talks about at the end of Acts. But we know a little bit about what it's like to be away from the ones that we love, even though for us it's only been a short while, a matter of weeks at this point. I don't think that this pandemic is going to continue for years where we're going to be separated in that way. But I do think that we can relate on some level of not being close. I read an article, I actually just read the title of it the other day, and kind of the main thrust of it was that kind of a plea to change the language that we use when we're talking about how we're reacting to the spread of this virus. The buzzword seems to be social distancing. And instead the author makes a plea that we stop calling it social distancing and let's start calling it physical distancing. Social distancing seems to speak to isolation, to no contact. We still have ways of connecting, much like what we're doing right here, with the videos, with the phone calls, with the emails, with with other ways that we reach out. We're not going to be socially isolated, even though we're going to be physically distant. But Paul says here that he's away from the people that he loves. The next thing is that he thanks them for their partnership. Their partnership in the gospel. Now, Paul has a history with this church, but it's a good reminder to you and me that we're not in this by ourselves. Right? Our families that are distant right now, that are almost confined in some ways to their home, is not just that family that's part of God's people. It's not just us, not just me by myself, that we're part of something much, much bigger. It's a reminder that we have partners in this, partners that we dearly miss because we're not seeing them all the time, but still, they're partners with us in the gospel, partners with us in the good news, part of the family of God. We're not in this by ourselves. He also expresses this confidence that God's going to work this out, right? And you see this in different places in Paul's letter, and not just in this one, but in others. He says, I'm confident that the one who started a good work in you will bring it to completion. God's not going to be beaten. God's not going to be defeated, right? God is in control. We mentioned this in our last one. God's purpose is still going to be completed, and we're part of what God is doing. And that God started this, and he's going to bring it to completion. That he's going to work in us and through us. That we are not alone because we have the family of God, but not alone because we have the actual presence of God who started this and is going to bring it to completion. The next thing he says is, I yearn for you. I yearn for you. And it speaks again to that love and that love that even though he's not with them physically, that Paul still has this deep love for the saints. I think it's in 2 Corinthians, and I don't remember the verse and didn't write it down, but it's in 2 Corinthians where Paul begins to kind of give some of the things that have happened to him because of the gospel, right? So many times he's been beaten by the Jews, and he was beaten with rods, and he was stoned and left for dead in shipwreck, and a night and day spent in the deep, and in danger, from robbers, and dangers in cities, and dangers in the country. I mean, just dangers all over. And he lists all of that out, and then he says at the end of that, he goes, and besides all this, the anxiety that I have for all the churches, the daily anxiety for all the churches, that these people are dearly loved by Paul. And we know what that's like. We know a little bit about what that's like to be away, even for the shortest time that we've been so far, as short as this has been. We know what it's like to be away from those that we love. Here's what I want us to do. We're used to walking into this building, and it's strange, right? It is strange for me to be here in this building where there are just maybe two or just three of us on Sunday morning. Strange to be here and not look out and see people sitting in those pews. Maybe even stranger is after the service is over, to walk back to the back and not have people come through and shake our hands, and people that we can love on, and people we can talk to and ask how their week was. Ask about things that are going on. That contact is not there. We're used to coming in and sitting down and finding our spot, right? We all have a spot. And that's my spot. And I'm going to sit there. But around me are other people. And that's their spot too. And we know who they are. And we visit with them. And we visit with those who sit close to us. We visit with those who sit on the other side of the auditorium from us. But we visit. What I want to do is a couple things. First one is I want to give a big thank you to our care group leaders. People who are watching out for those in their group. They're making phone calls. They're checking up on people. And it's one thing to do that whenever you get a list and you go, okay, these people weren't in services this week, and to call them and check on them and that kind of thing. It's another thing when it's not just one person or one couple or one family. It's another thing when it's the entire group, and you need to keep up with them and you need to find out what's going on with them. Our care group leaders have been making phone calls, been checking in on people, trying to take care of people, trying to make sure that we have the things that we need, and they are doing a fantastic job, and we need to say thanks to them. The second thing that I want us to do, and speaking of thankfulness, is I want us just to either with an email, with a text. Those are great, and that's a wonderful way to do it. There's also another way, if we wanted to do that, of just grabbing our church directory, kind of looking through there, and while this is going on, maybe it's a few a week, that we find we just grab a note, thank you note, and we write Paul's words on there, and just send it to these people. Just send it to those around us, those that we miss dearly. Right on there, I thank my God for every remembrance of you. I thank my God for every remembrance of you. Just to send those out. Just to brighten somebody's day. To keep that connection going. To let us know, each of us know, that we're not in this by ourselves. That we're all in this together. And that we're hopeful. That we're loving. That we're still trusting that God's going to take care of this and take care of it well. That something good can come from this. But right now, I'm making that connection and keeping that connection going and expressing our love for one another. We'll be back together soon. We don't know whether it's going to be a matter of weeks or a matter of months, but we're going to be back together soon. Let's not lose that connection while we're apart. God bless you.